Very good. You've taken another course. Competitive devaluation. Governments will devalue their currencies in order to make their goods more competitive. We used to have that advantage in Canada until some years ago. When I moved to Canada 10 years ago, the dollar was at 62 cents American. It was so cool. I could sell my house in the United States and buy it in the cheapo, flimsy Canadian real estate market. If I bought today, I would have lost half my capital simply in the exchange rate movement. It went from 62 to parity, right? Basically. We're floating around equal. So governments compete with each other by devaluating the currencies. It's called competitive devaluation. The other thing they do is they raise tariffs against each other. That's what I was expecting you to start with. The EU levels out tariffs. It gets rid of all internal tariffs. Not only that, and this is what distinguishes the EU from NAFTA, it also creates a common tariff for all external goods. So for example, when you ship from China into the EU, it doesn't matter where you ship into, the tariff is the same. Whereas if you ship into Canada versus the United States, we have two separate tariffs. Still, even though we have common tariffs between Canada and the United States, we have separate tariffs for third parties. The EU has a common customs frontier. But until recently, until 2004, they did not have a common currency. And it was the creation of the euro in 2004 which got rid of that last tool that the governments have for competing against each other, except on the basis of productivity and price. That's the logic of spillover. And the ultimate logic of spillover is that eventually, as you see all of that happening, you begin to understand that the economies are interdependent, that your fate depends not what goes on in Bonn or Paris or London or Rome, but your fate depends on what goes on in Brussels. And now when you start to look at the EU flag, you feel proud to be a member of the EU. You think of yourself as a European, and the loyalties that you have to your nation state start to fray at the edges. And we can actually judge this. There are public opinion polls. If you ever want to go look at Eurobarometer, it's all online, and you can start to look at, they ask every month or two, who do you feel loyal to? And what you can see in Europe, there are dual loyalties between the nation-state level and the European level. It goes up and down, like you would imagine it would. It's not steady. They happen to like the EU this month, they'll be more European. If they hate the EU this month, they'll be less European. But this is the project. The project is to overcome the nation-state through functional integration that happens as a result of intergovernmental agreements. Scholars disagree on whether the EU has gone to the point where it can be pulled apart. Some say the costs of pulling it apart are way too high. No one would ever go for it. Others say, no, this is still an intergovernmental set of agreements, and like any set of treaties, this is our agreements between nation states, and the nation states can withdraw if they want. Let me stop there and take questions. Okay, no question? Yeah?
Is the same thing going on with the African Union?
No. It's a good question, though. It's a very good question. It's the same thing going on with the African Union. There's actually remarkably little trade between African countries. Right? So this is really the logic of trade. African Union at this point is really about kind of military cooperation. The African Union is kind of more like NATO than it is like the EU. Really, the closest thing we have to the EU is in South America, Mercosur, and quite frankly, NAFTA. In Canada and the United States. I mean, I know Canadians say this, right? But the fact of the matter is that 85% of our trade is with the United States, right? The border is a real thing. The border is a big pain in the butt, right? Anybody who's trying to cross those, you know, at Niagara, those trucks lined up for 20 miles, you know those are real borders. The EU, they don't have that border. In fact, you might not know this, there are more barriers to interprovincial trade in Canada than there are to international trade within the EU. It's weird. Canada is really quite restricted. Canadians don't realize this, right? Just go try to buy liquor and bring it over. Go buy a truckload of liquor in Ontario, bring it over to Quebec. See what happens. I'll bring you a cake. Yeah. How far can Europeans, of course, go with respect to France's treatment of the Roma? It's an interesting problem. You see, courts are